All right, you glorious motherfuckers, get your asses ready for a trip back to the 70s. We're talking smack crooked cops and a dude named Frank Lucas, who, if you believe, the hype was basically the Scarface of Harlem.
He certainly became a larger-than-life figure, both in the streets and on the silver screen.
You're damn right, but let's cut the crap and dive into this shit. Everyone thinks they know the story from American Gangster, that movie with Denzel strutting around like a goddamn peacock. But how much of that was Hollywood bullshit?
Well, we've got a stack of sources here, from Wikipedia to the film's production notes, and it's pretty clear that Hollywood took more liberties than a congressman on a lobbyist's yacht.
So first up, Frank Lucas. The movie paints him as this smooth-talking, almost likable kingpin. Was he really that slick, or was he just another thug with a good PR team?
The film definitely romanticizes him, makes him seem like a strategic mastermind, but if you listen to the guys who actually busted him, the DEA agents, the judges, they'll tell you the real Frank Lucas was a different breed altogether.
Let's hear it. What kind of dirt are we talking?
They describe him as violent, barely literate, and far from the charming gangster. Denzel portrays it's a stark contrast to the Robin Hood image the film tries to sell.
So basically, Denzel is playing a completely fictionalized character. What a load of shit. Did the real Lucas ever say anything about how he was portrayed in the movie?
He did. He admitted that the film exaggerated his story quite a bit. For example, there's this whole thing about him smuggling heroin in the coffins of dead soldiers. Turns out that never happened. Lucas himself said he got the heroin from Southeast Asia through more conventional channels.
Hold on, wait a minute. You're telling me that iconic scene with the coffins was pure Hollywood fabrication, those bastards?
It appears so, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
This is some seriously fucked up shit. All right, let's dig into this heroin pipeline. The movie makes it seem like Lucas went straight to the source, the golden triangle, cut out the middleman, and revolutionized the drug game.
Is there any truth to that? The Golden Triangle connection is another detail that's been heavily disputed. Journalists at the time, even some from the New York Times, reported on it as fact. But it turns out a lot of that reporting was based on rumors and speculation.
So those journalist asshats were just peddling hearsay like it was the gospel truth. You'd think they'd do their fucking research before spreading this bullshit.
It does make you wonder how much of what we know about history is actually just fabrication, doesn't it?
Damn right. And it makes you think twice about believing everything you see in a movie.
Exactly. It's crucial to be a critical consumer of information, especially when it comes to narratives that are designed to entertain.
So Frank Lucas, the real one, not the Denzel version,
Yeah.
was a whole lot more complicated than the movie lets on. What about Richie Roberts, the cop who brought him down? Was he really the incorruptible Boy Scout Russell Crowe played him to be?
Not exactly. Even Roberts admitted that the film took creative liberties with his story, especially the whole custody battle subplot. Turns out he never even had a kid.
What the fuck? They just made that shit up for dramatic effect. Hollywood really does think we're all a bunch of gullible idiots, don't they?
It seems so, and there are other aspects of Roberts' portrayal that raise eyebrows, for example. How does a supposedly squeaky clean cop get close enough to a kingpin like Lucas to make a deal? It all feels a bit too convenient, a bit too Hollywood.
It's almost like they wanted to create this classic good guy versus bad guy narrative, even if it meant distorting the truth.
There's a definite tendency in Hollywood to simplify complex realities, to paint things in black and white. It makes for a more entertaining story, but it doesn't always reflect the nuance of real life.
All right, so we've established that American Gangster, the movie, was basically a big pile of horse shit when it comes to accuracy. But what about the bigger picture here? Why are we so fascinated by these gangster stories, even when we know they're full of lies?
That's a question that goes beyond this specific film. It's about our cultural obsession with outlaws, rebels, the figures who operate outside the lines.
Is it the money, the power, the whole fuck you attitude?
Hmm.
What is it about these gangsters that draws us in?
It's likely a combination of factors. There's the allure of danger, the fascination with a world that most of us will never experience firsthand. There's also the vicarious thrill of living through these characters, of escaping the mundane reality of our own lives.
And let's be honest, there's a certain level of admiration for those who break the rules and get away with it.
It's a primal instinct. Perhaps we're drawn to those who defy authority, those who challenge the status quo.
But we also love a good story. And gangster flicks, even when they're full of shit, tend to be damn entertaining.
Absolutely. Hollywood knows how to craft a compelling narrative, even if it means bending the truth a bit. And as viewers, we're often willing to suspend our disbelief to get lost in the world the film creates, even if it's a world built on lies.
So what's the takeaway here? Are we just a bunch of suckers for a good yarn, even if it's a load of crap?
I think it's more complicated than that. We can enjoy these films for their entertainment value, but we also need to be aware of their limitations, of the ways in which they might distort reality.
It's like that old saying, don't believe everything you see on TV, or in a movie for that matter.
Precisely. It's about being a critical viewer, about questioning the narratives we're presented with, and about recognizing that the truth is often far more complex and far more interesting than any fictionalized account.
All right, motherfuckers, that's the end of part 1 of our deep dive into the myth and the reality of American Gangster. We've exposed some serious Hollywood bullshit, but we're just getting started.
Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the story of Frank Lucas, Richie Roberts, and the dark underbelly of 1970s America. Welcome back, you degenerates. Last time we tore apart that cinematic masterpiece, American Gangster. Turns out Hollywood took more creative liberties than a horny teenager left alone with Photoshop.
Damn right, we did. We ripped off that glitzy facade and exposed Frank Lucas for the ruthless, and let's be honest, kind of dumb criminal he actually was.
We did indeed, but now let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Why are we as a society so fascinated by these gangster stories? Is it the money, the power, the allure of a life lived outside the law?
It's a good fucking question. I mean, everyone loves a bad boy, right? But there's something about gangsters, especially those larger-than-life figures like Frank Lucas, that captures our imaginations.
I think part of it is the vicarious thrill we get to experience, the excitement, the danger, the freedom of a life unbound by rules, all from the comfort of our couches.
It's a mental vacation to the dark side. You get to indulge your inner outlaw without actually having to risk getting your ass shot off.
Precisely, and let's not forget the allure of the forbidden gangsters represent a world that's hidden from most of us, a world of secret deals, backroom power plays, and unimaginable wealth.
The world where the rules are different, where loyalty and betrayal are intertwined, where violence is a currency. It's intoxicating, even if it's ultimately destructive.
Absolutely. And Hollywood, of course, understands this. They capitalize on our fascination with the criminal underworld, packaging it into slick, entertaining narratives that tap into our primal desires.
They take these brutal, often pathetic figures and turn them into anti-heroes, even outright heroes. They give them charisma, wit, and a twisted sense of honor that makes us root for them, even as they're committing heinous acts.
It's a dangerous game, though, because while these films can be entertaining, they also have the potential to desensitize us to the real-world consequences of violence and crime.
You're right, we can get so caught up in the fantasy that we forget that real people get hurt. Real lives are destroyed. It's easy to glamorize the gangster lifestyle when you're watching it from a safe distance.
Exactly. It's crucial to remember that behind the glitz and glamour, there's a dark reality. The drug trade, for example, which is often romanticized in these films, is a brutal business built on addiction, exploitation, and death.
Speaking of the drug trade, let's talk about the impact Frank Lucas's operation had on Harlem. The movie touches on it, but it doesn't really show the full extent of the damage.
You're right, the film glosses over the devastating consequences of Lucas's heroin empire. His blue magic, as they called it, flooded the streets of Harlem, leading to widespread addiction, violence, and despair.
It's fucked up. Man, this dude was making millions off the misery of his own community. And while he was living the high life, countless families were being torn apart by addiction.
It's a stark reminder that the glamorized version of the gangster lifestyle we see in movies often masks a far more sinister reality. The truth is, the drug trade preys on the vulnerable, exploits the desperate, and leaves a trail of destruction in its wake.
It's a cycle of pain that's hard to break, and it's something that the film, despite its flaws, at least tries to acknowledge.
It does. There are moments in the film where you see the toll that Lucas's operation is taking on the community. The broken families, the senseless violence, the despair, but those moments are fleeting, overshadowed by the film's focus on Lucas's rise to power and his eventual downfall.
It's like the movie wants to have it both ways. It wants to glamorize the gangster lifestyle while also acknowledging the damage it causes, but in the end, the glamour wins out.
And that's the danger of these films. They can be entertaining, but they can also be dangerously seductive. They can make us forget that the consequences of crime are real, that the victims are real people with real lives.
So what's the solution? Should we just stop watching gangster movies altogether?
I don't think that's realistic or even desirable. These films can be valuable, thought-provoking pieces of art, but we need to approach them with a critical eye to recognize that they're presenting a distorted view of reality.
It's about separating the fantasy from the reality, right? Enjoying the story without buying into the hype.
Exactly. It's about understanding that the world of gangsters is not glamorous, it's not exciting, it's not something to aspire to. It's a world of brutality, exploitation, and ultimately self-destruction.
All right, you magnificent fuckers. That's part 2 of our deep dive into American Gangster. We've explored the dark allure of the gangster lifestyle and the devastating impact of the drug trade.
But we're not done yet. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll delve into the complexities of the criminal justice system, the moral ambiguities of the war on drugs, and the enduring legacy of Frank Lucas and Richie Roberts.
All right, you beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the final round of this shit show. We've ripped apart the Hollywood fantasy of American Gangster, exposed Frank Lucas for the ruthless asshole he was, and dug into the fucked up reality of the drug trade. Now, let's talk about the cops and the courts. Those pillars of justice that are supposed to keep us safe from the scumbags of the world.
The film portrays Richie Roberts, the detective who brought down Frank Lucas, as this shining beacon of integrity in a sea of corruption.
Yeah, Russell Crowe strutting around with that holier-than-thou attitude like he was the only honest cop in New York City. But let's be real. The justice system, especially back in the 70s, was a whole lot messier than the movie makes it seem.
Absolutely. The film glosses over the systemic corruption that was rampant in law enforcement at the time. The lines between cops and criminals were often blurred, with some officers turning a blind eye to illegal activities or even participating in them.
So was Richie Roberts really as clean as the movie portrays him, or was he just playing a different game, using the system to his advantage?
It's a valid question. To navigate that corrupt system and achieve the results, he did a certain level of pragmatism. Even compromise was likely necessary.
So maybe he wasn't this knight in shining armor, but a more complex, even morally ambiguous figure working within a system that was inherently flawed.
That's a possibility we have to consider. It highlights the larger issue of the criminal justice system often being portrayed in black and white, when in reality it's full of shades of gray.
And let's not forget the whole war on drugs backdrop, which was in full swing during this period. That shit had a huge impact on communities like Harlem, right?
Absolutely. The war on drugs led to mass incarceration, disproportionately affecting minority communities. It fueled racial disparities in sentencing militarized police forces, and ultimately failed to address the root causes of addiction and drug-related crime.
So basically they created a whole new set of problems while trying to solve another one. Sounds about right for the government. But what about the legacy of American Gangster, both the movie and the real-life events it portrays?
Despite its historical inaccuracies, the film has become a cultural touchstone, sparking conversations about crime race and the American dream.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that everyone quotes even if they don't realize it, my man. That shit's iconic.
It's achieved a certain level of pop culture immortality, for better or worse. It's also forced us to think about the nature of truth in filmmaking and the responsibility artists have when depicting real-life events.
But beyond the movie itself, the stories of Frank Lucas and Richie Roberts continue to fascinate us. Why is that?
They represent a pivotal moment in American history, a time of social and political upheaval. Their stories, like so many others from that era, remind us that the past is never truly past. It shapes our present, influences our choices, and echoes through generations.
It's deep shit, man. So after all this digging, after ripping apart the myths and exposing the lies, what the fuck does it all mean for you, the listener?
I think it highlights the importance of being a critical consumer of information, especially in this age of media saturation. We're bombarded with narratives, both true and false, and it's up to us to discern what's real, what's bullshit, and what lies somewhere in between.
Don't be a sheep, folks. Question everything. Do your own research and form your own damn opinions.
Exactly, and never forget that behind every headline, every movie, every story, there are real people, real lives with real consequences.
No.
It's easy to get caught up in the spectacle, but it's crucial to remember the human cost of these events.
All right, you magnificent bastards. That's the end of our deep dive into the world of American Gangster. We've exposed the Hollywood bullshit, uncovered the harsh realities, and hopefully made you think twice about the stories we tell ourselves about crime, justice, and the American dream. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep fighting the good fight. Peace out.